Stephanie. How are you, dear?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to have you here. In the mornings for the last 9 or 10 months now, we've been studying Bhagavad Gita. And so we'll take some Bhagavad Gita this morning as well. We have an idea of yoga, and this is a yoga ashram. It's a place to practice yoga. So ashram means, it's translated in different ways. People will think of it as like a retreat or a monastery. And monastery is close. But it's a place of intense practice. So practice and life are really the same thing. Have you noticed? Whatever we practice, we become. There's a beautiful video, and I don't know how many have seen it, and it's only 2 or 3 minutes. Well, if we have the opportunity, we'll share it, but we'll certainly share the link. It's a little boy. He's about, 7 years, 8 years old, something like that. He's Indian. And he's wanting to make a point, and this is YouTube. And I have the impression he put himself up to it. In other words, this is his message that he wants to share. And he talks about practice, and he's saying whatever you practice, you become. Whatever you practice, you become. And he said, and he starts it off by saying, do you practice happiness? And then he says, or do you practice anger? And he said, if you practice anger, you will become very, very good at it. So good, in fact, that the littlest thing, and then he says again for emphasis, the littlest thing will make you so angry. Huh? Yeah. And then we'll let him do the rest of it. But then he closes it again by saying, so what do you practice? Do you practice kindness? Do you practice happiness? Do you practice love? And yoga is actually intentional practice of life, or intensive practice of life. Intensive practice in a way that brings us out of the states of anger and judgment and fear and all of this into a higher state. And yoga is not practiced the way we think it is. In the West, we have the idea that yoga is the asana practice. It's the pretzel stuff. Get into a really, nice asana. And I remember the photographs of people practicing yoga, and since these minds are so objectified and about how things appear, instead of focusing on what's really here and what is the way out of suffering. I remember seeing how in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and I suppose it's still so, but it's changed some. The idea of practicing yoga would have to have a tight clothing and then a perfect posture of some sort or another. So it would be, but really yoga has to do with coming into union with one's own highest self. We can say God too, because one's own highest self and God are one. And so it's not a path apart from us. It's not I also had the idea, and I very much had the idea still back when I was walking pilgrimage, that it's a monastic kind of path. But then it became obvious that it's not. Bhagavad Gita itself is taught in the battlefield, and really meaning in the battlefield of life, when things are happening. And really, for the practice of yoga, we need some things to happen. Things what? Things you don't like. Things that you like and things that you don't like. And it's beautiful how this opportunity to gather together as families, mothers, and the children has come about. It came from. Did Erica talk at all about that last night? I didn't have the opportunity to participate in her talk, but did she talk about any of how this came? Motherhood Yoga? Yeah, a little bit. Oh. So in Bhagavad Gita, first time I tried to teach Bhagavad Gita, and I had done my best to live it with pilgrimage. And I'd been exposed to Bhagavad Gita before I went to India, which is now 11 years ago, I think. I had read Bhagavad Gita. I actually read this translation, Swami Shivananda. I read it. I finished it on the airplane as I was flying into India. And then I was with Swami Ramaswarup. Swami Ramaswarup's image is up here. He's the laughing yogi here on the corner. You see him? Laughing yogi, what looks like red. Swami Ramaswarup merged. He left his body in just this past July, late July. And he had studied Bhagavad Gita, and studying it meaning practicing it, living it, for 30-some years, 35 years. His teacher had been Swami Chidananda, and Swami Chidananda's image is up here, just to the left of Paramahansa Yogananda. And so I was with Swamiji for over a year the first time, and then a little bit after that. But it resonated so deeply that I'd resolved to do my best to live it. And then the first time I was asked to share something from the Bhagavad Gita, I did what most jaded Westerners would do, which is I started with chapter 1, verse 1. And it immediately went into a hole. And I remembered Swamiji, whenever he started with a group, he always started with these two shlokas, and they're in the chapter, the Yoga of Meditation. They really speak to the essence of what this life is, and whatever role we have, whether it's mother, father, warrior, student, son, daughter, grandmother, whatever the role is, it really speaks to what is this life. And there's a practice of yoga and a practice of bhoga, and it speaks to both of those. Bhoga is the life where we're coming out and coming into union with the sense objects, and yoga is where we're doing our best to turn life around and to come into union with the highest. So in this, and this is Lord Krishna speaking, he says, one should raise oneself up by oneself alone. Let not one lower oneself, for the self alone is the friend of the self, and the self alone is the enemy of oneself. How many have heard this, are hearing this for the first time? Oh. So there's a different translation we'll read, and we'll talk a little bit about it and talk about how it relates to Motherhood Yoga and what we're engaged in and this life. One should raise oneself up by oneself alone. Let not one lower oneself, for the self alone is the friend of oneself, and the self alone is the enemy of oneself. I'm going to read this. This translation is a little different, but the meaning is the same. In context, they're good. You can rise up through the efforts of your own self or your own mind. In the same manner, you can draw yourself down, for you are your own friend or enemy. So it speaks to the fact that in this life, in this human birth, this mysterious human experience, we can go one of two directions. We can go up or we can go down. And we see this, oh my God, in this world today, to have a situation where people are bombing children and women and like this, and yeah. It shows what the human is capable of in one direction. And then the saints and sages who help us to learn how to be free show us the other direction. This human birth is the most amazing thing because we have within us the capacity to fall to depths that even the animals don't fall to. Yeah? Even the animals who kill, they only kill in order to eat or in order to protect their own particular territory, their own children, etc. like this. So the depths to which we can fall and the heights to which we can rise, we can realize who we are, the essence, the divine, we can realize it, we can know it, and we can become one with it. And we can be called a saint. This is the potential of this human birth. And each and every one of us are faced with it. Because we're faced inside and outside, right? Inside we have multiple forces at work trying to get our attention. And outside it's the same, right? Paramahansa Yogananda was asked, in a case, what's happening in Ukraine and such, it brings forth, although this is always here, evil is always here. It's inside of us, and it's clearly inside everyone, because these acts that are played out that are clearly dastardly. And also the fact that really the most amazing thing is no one here is doing anything for a purpose other than to be happy. I mean, some of the craziest things that get done still somehow motivated by an idea that doing this could somehow bring happiness to me or my people, right? So this too, that somehow in the name of love, everything here is done. And with a clear misunderstanding also of what it is. And so this force is within us, each and every one of us, and we're faced with it. Huh? We all have done things we're not very proud of. We all have made choices we're not real thrilled about. Yeah? In the light of day. Why did I do that? And at the same point, as Peace Pilgrim would say, the God-centered self is within us. And so it doesn't make any difference what role we play. Mother, father, son. Right? Whatever role we play, it doesn't make any difference. Because really, this verity of life, this truth of life is in front of us. Inside, outside. Yogananda was asked, and this question, why is there evil? This is one of the big questions that gets asked. And in every tradition, it's asked and answered in one way or another. Yogananda said this in this question, why is there evil? He says, there is light and there is darkness so that you can choose what you will do. Right? Which is a beautiful answer. It has to be one of the best. Because clearly there's a choice for us. There's an inner choice. And there are outer choices as well related to. And it's actually the inner choice that we keep coming face to face with. And so without judgment or anything such as this, we're all dealing with this inner sea. And this is what the Gita is speaking to. And really the teaching of the Gita is the quote-unquote Hindu, but it's not really Hindu. Even Hindu wasn't Hindu. Hindu was Sanatana Dharma, which simply means the eternal law. So learning to live in accordance with the eternal laws, that's what's called Hinduism. And every sect, really, the name of it doesn't do it justice. There's really one teaching, as it were, and these multiple forces within us. But Bhagavad Gita is a modern teaching for life as it is in this age. And it exists in order to help each of us to see how to practice yoga, how to practice union with our own highest self, in whatever role we're given, in whatever the situation is. We have the feeling that we have to run away and to something else, that since I'm not happy now, there's no happiness here where I am now. The situation that I'm in now doesn't allow for happiness. And therefore, I have to go somewhere or do something else which creates future in the future, or some other place. What came clear in terms of this particular Dharma, Motherhood Dharma, is just like I felt that I had to go to India in order to be free. And for me, I'm very grateful that I did, and I guess that it had to happen. But I realized later, but actually my freedom didn't rely on me being in India. So too, whatever role we're given, whatever path we're in, has the potential for freedom, has the potential for rising up, and has the potential for affecting everyone that we touch. In particular, for those who are with young people, and in particular mothers, we have such an important role in terms of shaping not just ourselves, but this life that we're stewards of. And so what we've discovered, and I would say, how did discovery come? Well, in this case, we were going on pilgrimage to go back to India. I'd invited Erica, not knowing that Beatrice, her first daughter, was in the belly, in the womb when she went. And then, so children came into this ashram from day one when there was an ashram. The first guests were Erica and Beatrice and Erica's mother and Erica's grandmother. Those were the first guests who came to the ashram, the first day that we had an ashram in Cottonwood. And then she asked, after coming a few times, she said, I think my cousin Jamie could benefit by coming here. Could she come? And Jamie has her child. And Swami, as he's wont to do, said, yes, of course. And then, lo and behold, here we are 4 years later with this beautiful family of mothers and children. Each of us doing our best to practice life in a way that we come into the light and remain in the light, and that we are able to share the light with others. So in our best non-judgmental ways. And so this sloka, this sutra that is being spoken of, really speaks to this life and the choices, no matter what is the role that we're playing. And the practice of yoga in this way is really the same, no matter. So one should raise oneself up by oneself alone. That is, we're each responsible for ourselves. Right? Let not one lower oneself, because we're each responsible for ourselves. And we have within us both of the factors. We have within us the I, me, mine factor, which asserts very loudly about what I need and how I'm going to be happy. And we also have within us, asserting in a very quiet way, but a sustained way, the conscience or the God-centered self saying, follow me, I will lead you out of the madness. Yes? And so, but by the way, that voice gets very annoying sometimes. We do recognize this because it tends to assert things that don't seem practical for us. So, is yoga life not so easy? The self alone is the friend of oneself, and the self alone is the enemy of oneself. This is a learning process, but learning that this friend or enemy is only inside. and that when we live or practice in a way that we cut ourselves off from the light, then we are an enemy of ourselves. We're not really, but as if. And also, we will live a life where it seems like we have many enemies outside. Constant problems arising, constant issues arising, constant difficulties. Who is that? And this is one of the toughest things that we deal with. Whatever role we're playing, even those of us who are studying scriptures constantly, it's one of the toughest things to deal with, is we keep falling into this otherness. This idea that someone outside of me is a problem, and therefore my enemy, because they're making it difficult for me to be happy. But the reality of the situation is we ourselves are the one causing the difficulty, and we ourselves are the one who have the capacity to remove it.
It's not our kids, our husband, our partner.
Right. It's none of this. And by the way, that is the best news, because that means we can live without victimhood. We can remove the victimhood. We can remove the enmity. We can remove the idea that I don't have control of my happiness, that my child has control of my happiness, or my husband has control of my happiness, or my situation has control of my happiness. And this is really and here in Motherhood Yoga, this has just becoming a beautiful sangha, a beautiful family of real people who have real lives, yes? Who encounter real opportunities that they think of as problems. And we exist to remind each other and to support each other through the process, and to practice together in a way that we learn more and more to honor the light and to share the light. Just like this. Practicing what's being shared here, which is uplifting ourselves. And in the case of motherhood, very specifically, it's the most amazing role because the mother also has the mirror right in suckling, and then right in front of you and in your arms, has the mirror right there all the time. So to the extent but it's intense, isn't it? So you have your own ashrams at home, you see. Intense practice is ashram. That's what it means.
Yeah, isn't that the literal word?
That's it. So little do you know that every mother is living in an ashram, especially when you live consciously, when you really live in order to draw upon the light and make the choices. The next sloka that relates to this, that really speaks of the how. The self is the friend of the self, by whom the self has been conquered by the self. But to the unconquered self, the self stands in the position of an enemy, like an external foe. So the mind, we're really talking about the person or the mind. The person, what we take ourselves to be, Stephanie, woman, this age, pregnant, whatever, what we take ourselves to be is not who we are. So if you really want to speak to who you are, then silence will be the language. But you can say, Spirit, I'm not this body, right? I'm not even these thoughts. My God, these thoughts are all over the map. And I understand, for example, in pregnancy, they're really all over the map. And so, because now we have a merger that's happened, and we're dealing with the merger and other energies that have come in that we might not necessarily be aware of. And so, the mind that controls us is as if an enemy. When we have learned to master the mind, to bring it into the light and to make it our friend, than it is a friend. This is what's being shared. This is really the simplicity of yoga and life, is as long as this mind, and by the way, mind will say, I'm not a bad character, and it's fine. In principle, that's true. In principle, it's true. But mind is where the assertion of otherness is. It doesn't exist someplace else. Mind is where the problems are. In other words, the same thing that happens is either a problem or an opportunity. Is it so? Yeah? Have we been around enough to see that?
Yeah.
The same thing that happens is either a problem or an opportunity. So therefore, what's the difference? Because problem and opportunity are two completely different things, right? They're two completely different attitudes, aren't they? Of the same thing. Is it so?
Depend on your mindset.
That's it. So problem exists in the mind, opportunity exists in the mind. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the mind that says there's a problem all the time is not behaving as a friend. And the mind that says there's an opportunity all the time is behaving as a friend. And what's the difference between the two? Actually, as far as minds go, no difference. What's different is the content of it and the reactive nature of it. Right? That's what's different. So the mind that has control of us is the mind that's telling us constantly problem, problem, problem. And if I do this, then the problem will be solved. Or if I do that, the problem will be solved. And it's under the control of what's called raga dvesha in Sanskrit, the desires and the aversions. I want this, I don't want that. And it's just the mind doing it. Soul doesn't do this, but mind, yes. And the mind that says, this is an opportunity. The Lord brought this opportunity to me in order for me to learn how to be of benefit when this kind of situation happens. It's really the same mind. Huh? But that's a mind that's under the light. And that's taking guidance from the light and that's relating to the light and is seeing the light and is not forgetting to see the light. Does that make sense? Is not forgetting to see the light. So this really speaks to the path of yoga, and it's regardless of the role that we play. This is what we're learning to do. And you could even say, is there a God? You could say no. But is there happiness? Well, I'm sure there is, because my entire life is about happiness. My entire life is a movement towards happiness. How do you know? Because if there's not happiness, you're not satisfied. Right? So, if we study happiness, we see happiness is dependent only also upon the mind. Right? Because one day somebody says something and unhappiness comes, and another day somebody says the same thing and happiness is there. Yes? Yeah. This happens, no happiness. That happens, happiness. So the gatekeeper also is the mind. So even if you took a purely atheistic view of life, you'd say, but I still want to be happy. Swami Shivananda would say, in fact, there's no atheist in the world because everybody wants happiness, and happiness is God. That they're one and the same thing. So, but it's fine. You want happiness, recognize where happiness is and go for it, but recognize where it is because it's not in the objects. There's actually nothing wrong with objects. The only issue with the objects is that we imagine happiness to be in the object. So it's not an issue with the object. The object is neutral. Yeah, it's the mind's imaginations. And this is really what we're working to do together is just this. It's to bring the mind under the control of the light. To make it an instrument of the light. And as we do it, to also, and this is our opportunity, as we serve together, as we grow, as we evolve. Everyone here is evolving. Every single person is evolving. Everyone is learning. We learn in different ways, but everyone's learning. When we're in Sangha, we learn together and we share together, and that's the beauty of this Motherhood Sangha, is the ability to share and learn together and learn from each other and like this. But this is ultimately what we're learning, is where is happiness, how to live in the light, And you forgive yourself for everything. And ideally you forgive everyone for everything too. And we just learn and we continue. If we know the goal is to live in the light or to live in God or to live in my own highest self, if we know that's the goal and we stay with the goal, even when the kids are screaming, then great progress is made.
But when they scream for your help.
Yes. Yes, it's true. It's true. What you say is absolutely true. Everyone here that's screaming is screaming for help. It's true, dear. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And we're just also doing our best to learn where the help is and how the help is taken. And this also speaks to the relationship between the individual self and the absolute or the highest self. Oh, okay. So that's it for this morning. Discussion? Any comments about what we're discussing? So this is really the essence of the Gita, by the way. For those who study Gita or read it, it's always recommended. Every mother, everyone, in the family certainly should read the Gita, and because so much will come from it. But then we have to live our lives, and that's the practice. But this is the essence of the Gita. It's the essence of all of the scriptures and all the traditions, the Bible, etc., etc. It's not other than helping us to pull ourselves up and to learn what's high and connect to that which is high. Questions, comments, anything before we close for the morning? How was camping last night? Did that work okay?
Yeah, it was great.
Did you enjoy it? Good. Good. It was finally warm enough to do it. And just last night was the first night. I was beginning to wonder a little bit about that. Because it had been, even the night before, it was freezing. Oh my God, how will this happen? I think that, oh my God, how will this happen part must have helped. Because we drove back up last night and arrived at 11:30 or something like that, 11 something, and opened the doors, and it's comfortable out here. Oh. Okay. We'll close with the final prayers in Arati, page 174. Ram Dass says, just in terms of attitude, Ram Dass says we're all just walking each other home. With what we're dealing with, it's so helpful to recognize what we're dealing with, but also to do our best to do it in a way where we don't get down on ourselves. We live this life step by step. So, but it's good to know that we have support. Yeah, it's good to know that we have support. We have support. But when we don't know it, when we don't recognize it, life is a drudgery. It's terrible. But when we know we have support, we know we have go-to, then life really becomes rich and full. I'll share a little story about the peace mantra. Honest to God truth is, I don't know anything. And when something good comes out of here, it's a mystery to me. I just tune. And mantras, we did some work with mantras yesterday. And mantras are a way of tuning. And I'll tell you a little story. I mean, I know something. I just know when there's a difficult situation, chant mantra. And inside, it's always happening here. 3 years ago, so yesterday was our 4-year anniversary ashram here. And this is the second location. But not long after that, not too long after that, within months after coming and beginning to steward the ashram in Kanwat, one of our dear family, Kailash, came because a dear friend of his was having a very, very difficult time with a very complex situation, very involved situation. Morgan and Puma, his partner, steward a retreat not very far from us. It's a long drive, but it's not, as the crow flies, it's pretty darn close. They were having a very, very difficult situation, and it had gotten really out of control. And I heard the story, and the story included a mortgage that had been paid off. There was a lot of money, and the bank holding the mortgage said they had no record of it being paid off, and the property had been foreclosed and then taken back again and then foreclosed again. It was in process of foreclosure. Sheriff was coming with deputies, and guns were involved. Because there was all the protection stuff is up in the body, all of the preservation, self-preservation stuff, and I did this and I did that, and lots of rajas for those who study the gunas. So I was asked if I could be of help, and I said, well, I don't know, but I know what to do. And so I met with Morgan and Puma, and we had a lovely meeting, and we talked a little bit about it. And we took a reading from Peace Pilgrim, and the reading, of course, was just absolutely perfect. That really had to do with what to do in difficult situations. And he said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to come over, and I asked for the date and time that the sheriff and the bank and all the bank representatives and all of these were to come over to the property. And they gave me the date and the time, and I said, okay, I'd like to sit at the gate, right at the entrance, and chant mantra. And I'll chant mantra all day. Okay. So I was invited to come, and that's what I did. I came out before the sheriff and everyone was due to come. And I sat right at the gate, right at the entrance to the property with the mala. And I just began to chant Om Namo Narayana. And I chanted for 7 hours, something like that, the mantra. And during the time, and by the way, Morgan and Puma will tell the story of what happened. I don't know what happened because I was just sitting chanting mantra. And so, but what happened was that what did I see? I saw people arrive, driving in cars, and there was the sheriff's car. There were 3 of them that came, and there were other vehicles and people in suits and all of this arriving, and then Morgan tells the story of what happened inside. They argued, they stated their positions. And Morgan says, and I couldn't help but hear that darned mantra repeating over and over and over again. And I kept reflecting on you sitting out there chanting that mantra. And after a while, the idea came, just work something out. And so that day, they resolved all of it. Everyone shook hands. They discovered how to communicate. They set down their guard. They found peace within them. And they shook hands and they wrote an agreement. And now Morgan and Puma steward their retreat. So, as I say, the only thing I could take credit for possibly is knowing to chant the peace mantra. And the only reason that I know that is it had been shared with me, and I had seen many times before the power of it. So for those of us who say it doesn't make any difference what you think or what you say or what you do, it's terribly wrong. It's terribly wrong. It makes every difference what you think and what you say and what you do. Every difference. And what you think and what you say and what you do will lead you a direction in life. It will take you into a place, and it might take us into very dark places. That's part of the learning process, But even in a very dark place, salvation is always at hand. It's always possible to tune to the light and bring a different way of thinking and speaking and acting. It's always at hand. And so mantra, we were discussing yesterday when we were chanting mantras. One of our dear lineage friends, his name is Arjuna. And Arjuna is, he lived in ashram for 5 years up in Canada. And he loves to teach yoga asanas. And he's the most amazing yoga asana teacher that I have ever met. Who here has had a class with Arjuna? Tiffany. Amazing, huh? Isn't he something? Yeah. I don't know that he's still teaching every day, but for 30 years he taught every day. Every day. And he says about his time, his 5 years with Swami Vishnu Devananda, actually. He says, the two gifts that I was given are the greatest gifts of my life. And one is mantra, and the other is my name, the name Arjuna. Because the name helps him to reflect on the potential within him, and the mantra helps him to connect to it. So a little about the mantra and mantras. It's a very challenging time. It's a very challenging time. And light needs to be shared, and light is within us. Yes? And so it needs to be shared with our family, with our children, with our friends and such. But also, please don't underestimate the power of tuning to a mantra and repeating it inside or outside in difficult situations. And difficult situations are bound, and mantra, there's always opportunity in a difficult situation, right? And this is one of the opportunities, is to bring a beneficial energy into the space. The mind tends, in its old ways, it tends to go right into the dirt. It tends to go right into the story and right into the and all of this. And then it's like, would you stop it already? This is inner. Would you stop it already? Let's do something beneficial. There's a little reading to share this morning that's related. And it has to do with principles of the Bhagavad Gita and such. This beautiful soul here, and this is just the skin, just the fleshly body. Her name is Swami Lalitananda. She left the body several years ago. She was with Swami Jyotirmayananda, who's still in the body. Swami Jyotirmayananda's image is here, bottom left out of these four. And this is one of the books that she had offered, some of her observations. And there's a little essay, very short, that relates to family life and life in community and such, called Rise Beyond Attachment. She says, excessive attachment to any person or object can suppress a strong creative and spiritual movement within. It can suppress it, is what she's saying. Attachment means dependence upon the object of pleasure. Consequently, a festering weakness develops, leaving the person in a state of dejected helplessness. The dynamic energy that once supported willpower withdraws into a state of inertia. The spiritual power that might have carried one into the mystic heights is suppressed in an unknown cave of the unconscious. Attachment is like the tropical large-leafed plants that cling and entwine the trunk of a healthy green tree. And as each day goes by, it is enjoying and relishing the nourishment from the tree, thus reducing the strength of the latter to a low ebb. Strangely enough, those who are attached to their loved ones have greater capacity to hate them and torment them. The slightest shade of doubt can throw the loved one into a high degree of fury. Most violent acts are committed against the very person one has adored so passionately with 1,000 sweet words. Therefore, attachment and hatred are like twins externally, but could without warning switch their names. Deep down in the subconscious, these two giant snakes lie coiled. Attachment, and this is in Sanskrit, raga, and hatred, in Sanskrit, dvesha. We talk often about raga, dvesha, the twins, which are really two sides of the same coin. Attachment and you could say aversion, but here she's using hatred as a way. What we call love. I love you. What we call love. And she says, one is deadly as the other to the blooming of the lotus in the heart of a spiritual aspirant. The cause of both is the sadistic ego that will persist in its identification with the body. This brings about a separation from the universal stream of consciousness. The mind is kept in a state of agitation, resulting in the lack of discrimination and dispassion. Life is then completely filled with miseries, turmoils, and unfavorable conditions. In order to remove the chains of attachment and hatred, one must understand, I am not this body. I am not this mind, nor these senses, nor the intellect, nor this personality. And all of this will pass away, but I am essentially eternal spirit, ever free, without limitations. And then she gives the prescription. By reading the scriptures and reflecting upon their profound teachings, by hearing sublime lectures by highly qualified sages, and by beginning a definite trend of mental austerity. Austerity sounds like a terrible word because we have to withdraw, but mental austerity meaning withdraw our mind from the perceived pleasures and the perceived pains. Withdraw the mind from them, because the mind gets caught up in pursuit of pleasure, believing that that will bring happiness. But what pleasure brings is hatred. Huh? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, because when you get it, it's never enough. And when you lose it, someone's at fault. Yeah? And so this is it's this twinkling that catches us, that looks like gold, but it's really poison.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. And so, and foregoing, and then she says, what else? And this is one of our dear family asked a question about exactly this morning, and I just took a photo of this in center. And foregoing the evil habit of daydreaming, mulling over the past experiences, recalling memories of pleasant experiences, and by removing one's dependence on future expectations, one can rise beyond the snare of attachment. Break those fetters of attachments that obstruct your spiritual progress. Always move forward with great strides, like a lion in the forest of the worldly entanglements. That's what she offers. We were talking yesterday about householder life, and it's really whatever role we're given. Our dear Narayana Das, he asked a question the other day. He was talking about householder life, and so maybe I should be a householder. I said, stop.
Leave it to the
or something like that. Leave that to the householder. There's always the idea I have to change my role in order to be happy, because I'm not happy now. Does that make sense? But happiness is within. And so she's touching on what's really needing to change, which is the expectation of something outside giving me happiness or something outside preventing me from being happy. And that tendency is what's covering up love and has been covering love all of this time. It's that. It's the sweet words that someone says, and we feel drawn to them, right? And now we want to be with them because they say sweet words, but soon enough they won't be saying sweet words anymore. And then where will you be? Yeah. And so the beauty of the householder path, motherhood, is the ability to practice detachment, real love. Mm-hmm. Real love. Real love. Real love. Acceptance. Accept the child as the divine when they do something good and when they do something bad. Doesn't mean don't correct them. Yeah. So she speaks to the way out, but and for the one who is not in that kind of relationship, we have other relationships. We need relationships in order to work out what we have to work out. There's nothing wrong with the objects here. There's an idea of yoga and this detachment, and detachment will sound like the worst thing in the world. There's an idea of yoga that we're supposed to renounce the objects and renounce all of our relationships and all of this. That's not it at all. There's nothing wrong with the objects. The objects are neutral. The objects are neutral. What we struggle with is that we imbue the objects. In our mind, we imbue the objects with qualities. In and of themselves, they're neutral. A person is really neutral. So, okay, do they do good things? Yeah, they do good things, they do bad things. But everything here is relative when we say good or bad. We have here on the ashram grounds, we have hawks and eagles, and we have mice and squirrels. And the hawks and the eagles, they'll fly over the river, yeah, and they'll see what looks good to them, which is a meal of a squirrel or a mouse, and they'll fly down and they'll pick it up. So what's good to one is bad for another, right? And this mind, because of this Maya, and it's just the way it is. This mind is caught up in the pursuit of what's good for us, pleasant for us, and the avoidance of the pain, as if that will bring the full-on bliss that we're seeking. And yet, it can't. So there's nothing wrong with the object. The only thing that's flawed is what we've imbued the object with. The object can be anything that you wish for it to be. You can take a form, and you can call it Bill, and you can say it's a doctor and all of this. I mean, you can do whatever you wish. You can take one of these photographs and look at the photograph and have a story about the photograph. It's fine. It's fine. All of the objects are neutral, and there's nothing wrong with any of this. The issue that we struggle with is only that we imagine that within the object is happiness. But happiness can't be in the object because it's you, it's who you are. You can't give it to anything, right? It can't be in the object. We try to imbue the object with happiness, but it's impossible. It can't be because the object is simply an object. It's simply an object. It's neutral. So you can make it whatever you want. The imagination is beautiful. The imagination is amazing. You can make anything into anything, but you can't actually make your happiness related to the object because the object doesn't have it and it can't give it to you. So what we come to is an understanding that, if I let go of the attachment to the object and I connect with the essence, then I can accept, I can love without any expectation. And that's really what we're striving for in yoga life, whether we're householders or monastic for a moment or any role, anything, is to disconnect from the appearance of the thing, disconnect from the expectation we have of the thing doing something to us. And the thing can't do something to us because we're spirit. We're soul. We're ever free. Nothing can kill you. Nothing can hurt you. Nothing can take anything away from you because you are already what you seek. So the practice of yoga is really that. It's about practicing to see more deeply, to connect more deeply. And the practice is very much lived in the world. That's the teaching of Lord Krishna, Bhagavad Gita. It's in the world. Whatever is your duty, don't look for a different duty. You don't need a different duty, right? Whatever it is, whatever situation we're in, it's perfect for the practice of yoga. It's perfect for the surroundings that we need in order to bring light into the situation, in order to tune to that which is higher. And it's also perfect to detach from the expectations around it. Right? Anything that anyone would like to share along the line? Any stories or any observations? Anything you've discovered? Everyone here has been making discoveries for sure.
The first day that I arrived to the ashram, you said to me, although you're a mother, your first child is your mind. And yeah, I feel like I may lose Fiorella. She may leave the body, who knows when. Or if I didn't have a child, I may have a child in 3 years or something. Like this household, I think we all are all household at some degree because of that. It might change along the journey, and within us, we are our own parent.
It's interesting as far as the mind. And you're saying it's the expectations and not always thinking about the next thing and just living the moment, and at some point realizing that everything we do is kind of scary and we're deterred to do it almost at first. I adopted this new job and I invested all this time and education and money into it, and it was terrifying. And then I felt obligated to do it because I'd spent the time and money into it. And I was explaining this to a neighbor, and she's like, everything's scary at first, but then with practice, you get used to it, and then you get good at it. So, and I was like, whoa, she's right. And it's like, you saying that, I just realized it's like, when we're helping Steve the other day with the foundation,
right?
Myself and the other yogis, seeing the anxiousness in us just because we're doing something new when it was basically building a giant cake.
Oh,
instead of enjoying it.
yeah. Oh. Anything could be learned. Any behavior can be learned. But the thing that's being done can't bring you what you're actually seeking. So it's when you put the expectation into the thing that we suffer. Oh.
Perhaps adopting that unknown moment.
Allowing ourselves to live in the unknown. Allowing ourselves to accept the unknown and to live in the unknown. Yeah. And to do it, we have to be engaged in activity. Anything else anyone would like to share? Good morning, Kalyani. Oh, no, Shivaya, dear. Thank you for joining. Oh.
On this subject, I always remember you speaking to, if we are in a place physically that we really do not like, maybe it's the weather. You can tell the rest of the story.
No, go ahead.
So, we all have the capacity to start thinking about, well, where would I like to live?
Yes.
And then making those arrangements, and we would move. Maybe it's to a warmer climate, maybe it's whatever.
Yes.
The same way as with our mind. We're living in our mind, and if we're not happy, we have to change that environment.
Yeah, that's the environment we're actually wanting to change.
Building on the last night at the Durga Puja, the fate verse. Free
What,
will.
dear? Please.
Building on the talk from last night, the fate verse free will.
Yes.
From Shivananda.
Yeah.
The mantra is very, very efficient at building a new neighborhood to live in.
Who is? Mantra. Mantra is very. Mantra is a great neighborhood builder inside. Oh. Anyone else? Anything to contribute? It's really beautiful work. We all, this human experience, it's called a mixed birth. What that means is we carry a lot within us in this human experience. We have gifts. Each of us have gifts, and we also have some challenge that we've come in order to work out. And there are lots of voices inside that are happy to contribute. And we learn to tune. And it's not... We also learn to laugh and to be light in life. We're all here learning. We're learning. We learn with these inner voices, which ones we can follow and which ones we can laugh about. Oh, it's you again. I love you, dear, but I can't do what you say. It never goes well. Don't you know that by now?
It just wants more things at once.
Well, again, mothers can relate to the children and see it. So when we say the mind is actually the first child, you can see it. There are qualities where it's crying out for attention. It just wants to be heard.
Yeah.
Right?
And you literally just have to let it have like a venting session.
Yes.
Just go and it passes and then it's fine.
Go for it. I'm placing you in a white padded room for a while. Do what you need to do.
I was very closed off to the idea of the mantra and the mala beads. And then after practicing it for about a week, I found it was like having 10 kids in your head just messing with things and trying to get attention. The mala was like giving 6 of them stationary bicycles or something.
Okay. Oh. So it's not easy work, this inner work, but it's productive. It's productive. It's beneficial. It is really the work of transformation. Oh. Good morning, dear. What's up? Bananas. Okay, we should close for the morning.
I just want to say that
Yes, please do.
we we can't take our possessions, our physical possessions with us.
Right.
But the inner work that we do, we can carry that.
We carry that with us. Yeah. And it's the, yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful observation. Thank you. And so it's this. It's about this. It's about this, whatever the situation is. Okay, we'll close with final prayer and arati, page 174 in these books. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritor Mukshyaman Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritor Mukshyaman Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanam Mritor Mukshyaman Mritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashantu Makashi Dukhabhat Bhave Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mritor Ma Mritam Gamaya Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchitananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. On Bolo Sakar Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions.